Right on. Welcome to the DePIN State, sponsored by Eclipse. I'm Nick Hawks. Today's episode has got Michail Angelov from Roam Networks on here. This show is sponsored by Eclipse Builders. If you're pushing the limits of what's possible on chain, you should be building your own rollup with Eclipse. We'll have a little bit more on them later in the show. Michail, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Nick. Pleasure to be on the show. It's really a special time of the year now, so it's really excited to talk to you and to your listeners at this time.
Yeah, we're recording this on the longest day of the year, so it's super cool to just, it's funny as we think about all this high-tech stuff that we are still, that we're still connected to the natural world pretty strongly. So, and you're out in Finland, right?
Yes, exactly. So that's a very special celebration.
Cool. Super cool. So let's first talk about what Roam Networks is, what you guys are doing, and then we'll kind of get into some of the details.
All right. So, simple answer to that. Our mission is to build better, which means more performant and more sustainable mobile networks by utilizing the most standard way to build networks, which is the so-called G generation, so the 2G, 3G, 4G, now 5G, and the future 6G, plus combining it with the most standard way and most fair way to distribute rewards, which is the Web3 way. So that's what we do. So we reward you for your contribution in creating a better network for you to use, a better network for the mobile operator that you connect to use, and we in the middle are just facilitating the exchange of services. So you get a better service and you get reward for that. That's in short is I think what everybody on this event should remember, that that's the ultimate goal that we have.
Got it. So, and you've got a long history in telecoms, wireless, IoT stuff. You've worked with Nokia forever. You've done smart water stuff. So it's all very familiar to you. For the average user who's into DePIN and wants to participate in Roam, kind of what do they need and what do they get out of it?
Yeah, so it's a very fair question. So let's start what we're not doing. So we're not asking you to invest thousands of dollars or equivalent in your local currency anywhere in the world into buying an infrastructure and then wait for this infrastructure to be paid off. No, the way how the mobile network works, and that's why this is so exciting, is that you have your standard mobile phone, and then this phone talks to something which is called a tower or a so-called base station. And from there, the traffic goes in a very simplified way to the internet via the whole mobile network infrastructure. So what we ask you to do is that if you want to contribute, the simplest thing to do is to install an app on your phone. And this app is going to measure the quality and the performance of your local mobile network, the one that you're using on an everyday basis, the one that you pay even the monthly subscription fee. And once we collect this data, we're going to pre-analyze it to actually determine some possible problems for your local mobile operator. And because they need this data, we're going to actually sell it to them. And once we sell this data to them, then we're going to reward you with a fair value based on your contribution. So it depends how long you have kept the phone app open, how and what kind of quality you have contributed with your measurements, and how much you will need to do extra to get additional tasks done. So that's the simplest thing you can do. So you don't have to invest into expensive equipment. You can just contribute with your phone and your services. And that will be the easiest way to start participating in the ecosystem and to get the rewards.
Got it. So if I think of this in really general terms, I'm explaining it to my grandma or my mom, it's basically like you're using your cell phone as a cell phone mapper and helping networks understand like what kind of coverage they have, which is really important to them. And then you're getting rewarded for that.
Exactly. So think about it as your phone as a very sophisticated measurement device. I mean, think about the mobile network as an actual outdoor or street lighting. I mean, so basically the same way how your street light is distributed in space, so you could see the light and you could see the area where it's light in the evening and then it's dark. Yep. Same as the mobile network, there is an actual area where the mobile network illuminates the space and then you have good coverage. And there is an area where it gets grayish or darkish, so it's half-half, right? And then there is a space when it's dark. And same as in the street lights, you could actually see the spaces that is covered by each individual light pole, right? So this is how mobile networks go. And typically how it goes that your phone connects to each individual base station, or in the equivalent of the light. You move from one light spot to the next. You just keep on having the same connection. But this kind of a difference is a big topic for mobile operators, because imagine that you have an actual outdoor road and then you have lights not every 50 meters, but every couple of 100 meters. So then the light is actually very bright. So if you're under the light, it's too bright for you to look at it. If you're outside or at the edge, it's maybe not enough light. So the mobile operators needs to balance that. They have actual regulations to comply to. They cannot just blast all the power everywhere. They have to be compliant. So that's why they have to know exactly what to put with what parameters. And the parameters are very complicated. I mean, here we talk about light, which is just luminance and maybe the light color. In the mobile networks, there are hundreds of parameters, even more, that is being constantly monitored and constantly adjusted, even automatically. But some things even humans have to do. And these are the type of parameters that we can collect. And that's why we need the users to interact with us to be able to correct the right parameters at the right time with the right quality. And once we feed this data into the actual process of the mobile operators to build the networks, that's why we know that this is going to work. I mean, how I know it, because I think you introduced me as a telecom veteran. I mean, I would say that as telecom builder, let's not use the word veteran. Maybe builder is better. I've been building the first 5 or 3G networks by Tree or Hutchison in the Hong Kong and the UK already 2002, 2003 timeframe. And since then, I've been building also other type of networks around the world. And actually building a network is a fairly complicated and expensive process. And that's the problem now. I mean, the way how existing networks were built up to the 5G even is not sustainable in the future. And we need the community to participate more, but also to share the reward or the potential benefit of these networks. And this would bring not only better networks for everybody, but also would build networks in places where it was previously cost prohibitive to build, like remote areas or community that need this connection for other type of purposes. So that's why the topic of building the network is not just related to, telecom or specific industry, but something that could directly help people get a better life or get better access to technology that could help them lead a better life. I mean, I think it's quite closely related now, the access to information technology in GDP. So it was well studied. So if you can say, we are really on a mission to improve not only your mobile network coverage, but even your access to information, which can lead to a better life in a lot of places in the world.
Got it. Yeah, it's a super exciting thing. I mean, one of the cool parts about doing this show is we get to talk to plenty of projects like yours who are doing really neat things in this space, and we also get to talk to some of the less client-facing back-end kind of nerdy stuff that helps deepen projects. And it's interesting that you guys have a little bit of a mix of both. We'll do a short sponsorship here. Is that one of those projects is 𝐒𝐿IPS, who is a customizable roll-up provider deploying app-specific chains for several DePIN projects. They allow you to pick your virtual machine, your base layer, and additional customizations to enable new functionality for your D app. Those guys are super committed to building out DePIN, just like you are, and they're sponsors of this show. So if you're watching this, check them out at 𝐒𝐿IPS.builders and click the card above for a link to the interview we did with them if you haven't seen it already. So with that, I guess one of the hard questions is like, why aren't telcos already doing this, already collecting the data on their own and not paying you? Like, how do you end up competing with that?
That's a good question. And I think the answer to that is legacy way of doing business. I think the evolution of the web is actually a good example of that, right? I mean, if I can go back in time, I think we all remember the first Web 1 websites that were just replica of the brick and mortar stores, right? I think Amazon is the best example. So you actually create something which you have less cost to maintain, which is run a web store versus Barnes and Noble store, and then you visit it and then you purchase your good. So practically you actually do same business, but you do it online and you reduce the cost of doing the business. But then came Web 2, and the Web 2 was the story that you use a free service, our Facebook and Google's and all the other web services, but you are the commodity. So you're the one that is being monetized. And this is what happens with a lot of users. So you get to use some sort of an app that helps you measure your speed or the test of your internet connection from your phone. And you're happy because using a free service. But what happens in the background is that with or without you actually understanding, somebody is doing these measurements and somebody is collecting and selling these measurements without you getting anything. You get to use for free a simple app, right?
Yep.
What we believe is that the Web3 is all about the openness and the transparency in the value chain. So basically, you should know that your data has value, your actions have value, and then when we perform something that contributes to the community and building value with the community, you should get rewarded for that. I mean, I'm actually a believer that this will be a new type of model that we can interact with the so-called web services. And what better than that than combine what we know, I mean, my team and myself, that we know actually good about, which is how to build networks and how to utilize this data. And then we start with this simple use case. I think you have introduced in your podcast and all the projects, quite a lot of additional projects, and they're doing something similar in different spaces, like collecting sensor data for ambient sensing or connecting measurements of different type of real-world devices. And I think the story of understanding what is happening and getting the fair reward is actually a good story. So I'm really looking forward how this will develop in the future and become sustainable. Let's call it even business, right? Not just become ideas, but become sustainable business for all the involved party in the ecosystem. Yeah,
totally. No, we're building a new world together. It's super cool to see that you're part of it. So one of the things I think it's always funny is that folks are like, well, I'm already, it's like they don't want to mine something else on their app, but they're totally happy to be mined, right? Mm-hmm. They're happy to like scroll through Twitter and give away their information. But if you ask them to open up an app and do something specific and receive value for it, they're like, I don't know about that. So I see that just as one of the many indications that we're just making a systemic switch. And one of the ways you guys are helping with that is this Roam credits, Roam points, the whole tokenomics side. Can you talk a little bit about how people will be rewarded on the Roam network?
Yes, so that's the next difficult topic, I have to say. So again,
it's a hard question. Sorry.
No, it's a hard question. And the hard question is that we are real business. So we are registered and we're actually based in Switzerland, in Zurich, which has a legislation that allows such operation to work. And we are now making sure that in all the countries that we can deliver our services, so actually enable people to contribute their services, which is our service, that we have the right match to the local regulation, to the local expectation for different type of, different way to register what you're doing. So that's why we're a bit careful how we call it. And that's why we're going to call it now rewards that you're going to get. And typically this should work in the classical model that you receive the so-called credits that are something that you can use and you can spend, within the ecosystem, our ecosystem. But of course, our ecosystem has access to all the external ecosystems. And different regulations call it differently, but let's call it utility token for the sake that this is the most widely accepted terminology for that. I don't know what will happen in the US for all your US listeners. In Europe, we have a new type of regulation called MICA, which typically is pronounced as Mika. So I like it to be Mika, like my name, almost like Mike. And Mika says that we can work with utility tokens because this gives us a possibility to award people with the representation of the participation in the community. And within that community, the token would have the intrinsic value of a governance token. So that's what we can commit to do because we're a European project and we actually follow with that.
Yep.
Realistically, if anybody tells you that they know what will happen in the US, no, it's a crystal ball that it's interesting to see. So our promise is that we're doing the best we can to make sure that you're not liable, that you as a participation not liable to anything that can go afterwards or chase you afterwards, that you could be comfortable in the contribution. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that we understand and we can share with you back the status in your particular place of residence and where you want to actually contribute. So that's what you can promise.
It's funny, it's the Europeans always, it's the stereotype. It's always like more careful and making sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And the Americans are way more like cowboys, like, hell yeah, let's just figure it out at the end of the battle. So it's always good to see the way different people are doing it. Can you talk a little bit about something more concrete, which is this proof of service idea, which is kind of what the whole thing is based on?
Yeah, it's actually very simple story. So, I mean, our contribution is a service that you deliver as an actual participation in the community. You deliver a service. And of course, the simplest one that I mentioned, because this is the first one that will be available in a couple of months, would be the story that you can download the app and the app is performing a service. I mean, actually, it's called professional service in the mobile network professional lingo. And this service is that you scan the network, you collect data, and then you make this data available. And what we need to make sure is that what you do is rewarded fairly. So it means we will not allow people that are trying to scam the system. And we want to make sure that the service is actually legitimately usable, because, again, this will be high valuable data when you collect it correctly. And the more we can make sure there is a proof of the service, the more value it will have. I mean, the evolution of that is that what happens next, right? So what happens if the operator knows there is a bad coverage or not enough capacity in the place that you live? I mean, that's, of course, the next question. So then we can actually offer the evolution of the proof of service, which means that if you want, you can invest more. So actually acquire a 5G or a 4G base station or small cell, because it will be small in size. You can then take the action of installing it and making sure you follow the requirement from the buyer of the data from your base station, which would be quite well described as the requirements, and then you can get more rewards. So this means somebody will pay for the traffic that passes through the equipment that you have purchased. So this is the evolution of this proof of service. So you're providing then a connectivity service, and for your connectivity service, you're going to get the next level of rewards, which is, again, has to be with the right quality so that it has the right value.
Love it. Love it. Ripping. So as we wrap up here, where is the best place for people to find out more? This has been a super good intro, so people kind of get a first look at Roam Networks, but where would you direct them to go to learn more and participate in the community you guys are building?
I think the simplest way is to follow us on the social media channels. We are on Twitter, so it actually even regularly host Twitter Spaces sessions that we even welcome questions. Same as your questions. I mean, yours were the toughest so far. Thank you for that. Of course, the website is always there. So roamnetwork.xyz. And I think this is a great starting phase. So the website, Roam Network XYZ, and in Twitter or any of your favorite channels, we tend to publish regularly updates, and we're going to start inviting also experts from the industry and experts in different type of way how the real world is touching the telecom. So telecom and the sustainability, telecom and evolution of telecom. So you could actually, if you want to learn more about the evolution of this space, feel free to watch the space and then join the next sessions.
Love it. Love it. I'm excited to have you back on. We'll talk a little bit more about where Roam Network is going. And as you guys progress, I'd always love to hear updates from you. So thanks a ton for coming on the show.
Thank you, Nick, for having me. It's really a pleasure to spend this will be a memorable night, right? The longest day of the year, and the nice discussion we had.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. Ripping. If you haven't already, make sure you hit down or go down and hit the like and subscribe button. Follow us so we get more great guests like Michael coming straight to your inbox, and make sure you know what's going on in the DePIN space before anyone else does. Rock and roll. We are out.